Okay, so thanks Riley. Thanks to Andrew for approaching me once again. It's always a pleasure to represent CIHR, to represent the media relation community, and to try and help you when you have to deal with the media. Comme je travaille pour le gouvernement fédéral, on est une agence, je me dois d'offrir le tout, la session de façon bilingue. The deck is in English, mais si vous voulez poser vos questions par la suite en français, ça me fera grand plaisir de répondre en français ou en anglais. Si vous avez une troisième langue, ben là, je ne peux pas vous aider. French and English is okay for me. So real happy to be here. So my presentation is about 30 minutes, and this will give us time for a great chat, great exchange, conversation, questions you might have, and we learn a lot normally in those Q&A. So that's why I really want to leave some time for those questions. And please don't hesitate. And for the question period, I always encourage you to, if you want, open your camera, your mic, and just ask the question live, or you can use, of course, the chat. So what are the goals of today's session? First is to explain why talking to the media is important. And probably it's something you already know, but I'll try to emphasize on a couple of, reasons why this is important. We're going to see how the media operate today. I started my career as a reporter in 1987. And back in those days, the way we were operating was a bit different. So let me tell you that. Explaining how our communications team, not only at CIHR, but in different institutions, because there are communications teams in universities, in hospitals, in other organizations that are there to help you. So I'll try to explain how you and us can work together. And learn how to conduct an interview when you are approached by a reporter. Briefly about your trainer today. So I've been in communication for 34 years now. Prior, I started my career as a reporter. I actually just studied journalism in Jonquière, Saguenay, and then was a radio reporter in Hull and in Montreal for 15 years. So mostly radio, but I did also some writing. I wrote for Le Journal de Saint-Léonard. I remember I started my career there. I was covering sports. And I also did some TV. I'm still doing some TV. I host a TV show in Gatineau, which is a public affair TV show weekly. And actually, this afternoon, this is where I'm going. I'm taping my last show of the season. I've been at CIHR, I should update this, for 15 years now as the head of media relation. Prior to this, after my journalism, after my working for radio, I was hired by the city of Gatineau, where I was hired as a communication specialist, but then I became the press secretary for the mayor for 2 years. And I always joke that is where I lost all my hair. I was a press secretary for a mayor that calls you at 6 o'clock in the morning and that literally yells at the phone against the media. So that was quite an experience. I teach journalism for 13 years. I teach public speaking in French and English for 14 years at St. Paul University. And apart from my job at CIHR, I'm an associate with a firm in Ottawa as a senior media relation and public speaking and crisis communication trainer. Been doing this for the past 20 years now. So in a nutshell, enough about me. So communications team's role. We really see ourselves at CIHR, at least, as a one-stop shop for media relation. I remember when I started at CIHR, my manager at that time, who was well intended, she's one of the first tasks she asked me to do is create a database of all the researchers that was accessible for the media so that the media could go onto our website and just find researcher and do interviews. And then I said, you start a new job and your manager asks you something and you really don't think it's a good idea. So let me just tell you, it put me in a strange position. But at the end of the day, I always said throughout my career, I'm paid to give my opinion and to you know, and that's why I was hired. So I went back to my manager and I said, manager, I don't think it's a good idea. She says, why is that? I said, well, when reporters call us at CIHR, we want to have control over who is asking what to who to, you know what I mean? So I said, if we put this database accessible for reporters, of course, reporters are happy. They're, you know, they do their own thing, but we're not aware of anything. We need to control this. We need to control the traffic. We need to decide and recommend who should be the best person to do the interview. And we need to capture this and to add some data on. She said, yeah, it's a good idea. Okay, I agree with you. So I was very happy. So what happens is media call us and we have access to our database. I always joke that I have over 13,000 spokesperson because we fund 13,000 something researchers. So I have the accessibility is very huge for us. And basically we help you, a researcher, promote your work to the media. And you'll see a bit later on in the presentation, we have different strategy to do that. And we help organize interviews with you and reporters. So, and I'll explain the role that you as researcher and us can have on this. So really, and all of this starts with your success, with your research. This is the basic fundamental. Because if we're not aware of your research, well, en français, we say matière première. We don't have our you know, the essential ingredient for our recipe. It's your research. So your research, then we can raise public awareness. Then we might get government support, which translate into what? Oh, new funding. Interesting. N'est-ce pas? So the more people hear about your research, the more they become interested in that, and then that's pretty logic. And that's our role in comms, to promote, to make sure that the public knows about the research. We recently presented our new strategic plan at CAHR, and one of the most popular words in the plan was impact, demonstrating the impact of health research. And really, that's a lot of that about that, you know. And I really see this as a teamwork, like I was saying, working hand in hand with the research community. We can create a lot of interesting things. So what we do as a comms shop, we set up media interviews. We promote your research on social media. I'm not a social media specialist. I know a bit about social media, but at CIHR, I'm the media relations specialist, and my colleague Christine Ennis is the social media specialist. And we're pretty active on social media, and you know that. We're even now on Instagram and, you know, Pinterest and all of those social media platforms. Of course, Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, etc., etc. We, like I said earlier on, we try to raise awareness with partners and parliamentarians. We need them to be aware of what we do, of the impact of your research. We help organize events. Let me tell you now, as you know, we have two ministers, right? We have Minister Bennett for mental health, and we have Minister Duclos for health, Minister of Health. They really like CIHR. Well, oh yeah, they like CIHR. They like CIHR because we're good news. They're announcing, you know, research funding to help, you know, improve the health of Canadians. So how can that not be positive? So we have a lot of events. Actually, yesterday we organized our first, it was strange because, you know, for the past 2 years, we've been organizing events, you know, virtual events, but this one was an hybrid event. So Minister Duclos was at Université, not at Université, at l'Hôpital Saint-Justin in Montreal for an event on funding for COVID and young children. And so he was there, and we were on Zoom at the same time. So it went well. Actually, it went pretty well. And we try to identify other outreach activities. And those activities, which I normally call our tools, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. And one of the most efficient one is media pitches. Here's an example of what the media pitch is. And you see, it's short, it's to the point, it's catchy title, short paragraph, then two researchers, and then to book an interview, look at the bottom, it's my name, and it's the media relation. So you want to talk to Julie, you want to talk to Charles Morin, you need to talk to me. You contact me, and I'll handle the traffic there. And believe it or not, this is the pitch that we issue twice a year, of course, because we still change time twice a year. And this generates between 15 and 20 interviews each time. And with major media, like the mainstream media, they are on this. So impact. So media pitches, it works. So we issue between 30 and 40 of those every year. So we meet our communications shop at CAHR. We try to determine, what are the great topics. We try to pick stories that touch on all of our 13 institutes, and we try to be timely. Sometimes we even prepare pitches in advance. For instance, I have one pitch that's already, and I should not say that because this is bad luck, but for next winter. Don't talk about winter now, no. Summer is coming. But we have one on shoveling, the impact on shoveling on your heart health. And so we have this back on our sleeve, back pocket. We're ready. We're going to be ready when there's a big, huge snowstorm somewhere in Canada. We issue the pitch, and then media say, oh, that's interesting. And we have researchers that can talk about that. Of course, news releases and announcements, like I was saying a couple of minutes ago, ministers, they like CIHR. So we have a lot of those announcements. I don't know how many we organize per year, but it's with this new government, it seems that there's going to be a lot. Impact stories. Sometimes we are approached by researchers, and they talk to us about their research, and sometimes we decide what's the best vehicle, and the best vehicle sometimes is just writing math stories and articles that we publish on our website, or we can push social media or social media campaigns. Sometimes it can be a podcast, sometimes it can be a video, an interview. We created something at CIHR now. It's on the mic with Mike. I don't know if you've heard this. Mike is, of course, our president, Mike Strong. And Mike interviews researchers. It's pretty cool because it's him as a president of CHR, and he talks, and it's nice. So we put this on YouTube, and it works well. So what is the landscape of media today? Here are a couple of facts. Of course, there are few reporters. When I started my career in 1987 at a small radio station in Hull, we were 12 reporters in a newsroom. Today, there's 2 left, 2 reporters left. And it's the case all over the place. So newsrooms are shrinking. So we have more repurposing of interviews, and the impact is you have less specialized reporters. So what that means is you'll have to talk to a reporter from CKWC in Halifax. I just invented the radio station here, that really doesn't have a clue about science, about health research. So you'll have to do some, more background information for the reporter to make sure he or she understands. And actually, let me just pause for a second. And we had a discussion at CIHR because, for the past 2 years, a lot of reporters have been talking about health research, about science, and those reporters never talked about that before the pandemic. Everybody talked about the pandemic, about research, about vaccines. And so we said to ourselves, how can we help those reporters? How can we, improve the knowledge of those reporters? And we created a course, and we approached a researcher that was specialized in plain science communication, and a reporter. We did that in French and English. In English, it was David Secco. That was our star reporter. David is a professor now at Concordia University in Montreal. And in French, pour les francophones, c'était Michel Rochon. Michel Rochon était un grand journaliste à la Radio-Canada pendant plusieurs années au téléjournal. So, and then accompanied it with two researchers. And we built, and they built actually a session, a 90-minute session where they would talk about, the basic fundamental of what's peer reviewing. And these things seem simple for you guys, but let me tell you, most reporters don't have a clue about what this is. So educating them, and we approached the schools, journalism schools across Canada. We started that there. And now in phase 2, we're going to approach the mainstream media, really to equip them. And this will help you have a better discussion with them when they approach you for an interview. So there's always a difference between what the media need and what they want. And I always say that to my trainees. What they want is something spectacular. Okay, they want someone being angry and something that's controversial. That's what they want. Let's be honest here. But their basic fundamental need is a soundbite, is a quote. Yeah. And that brings a comment that I receive very often when I train scientists, researchers. They tell me, David, I'm so frustrated. I say, why? Well, the other day I was talking to a National Post reporter. I said, yeah, fantastic. But we talked for 45 minutes. I said, great. Then reporter tells me, well, the reporter only took a soundbite of 15 words for her paper. I'm frustrated. I say, well, researcher, here's the thing. It's the name of the game. Welcome to my life. This is what it is. And I said, the other thing I said, I hope these were 15 good words. Because, yeah, and be careful, okay? Because sometimes you will talk to reporters and you think it's just for background info. Every time you talk to a reporter, you can be quoted. You can end up in the front page of the paper, okay? Background is quotable material. They reach out because what they need is your expert opinion. If you are approached by a TV station and they ask you to do the interview in your lab and they ask you to wear a white coat, it's normal. A researcher works in a lab and has a white coat. That's the way they see it. When a reporter called us, the first thing we ask the reporter is, who they are. We try to find, because we don't know all the thousands of reporters in Canada. We know a couple, but not all of them. So we try to dig what's their style. So we Google their name. We Google we do some research on their previous articles to see their style. We ask for their deadline. Simple question: what's your deadline? And they sometimes will tell us. Most of them will tell us, but there's some negotiation here, because they give themselves a cushion for a deadline. Let's just put this in those words. So, and this is important because you should never, and I was talking about my other job I have with as a senior trainer with the private firm in Ottawa. And some of the trainees that we have are politicians. And sometimes politicians will tell me, David, you know what, during the weekend, reporters in my writing, they have my cell phone, they have the phone number at the cottage, they call me, we have a chit chat, and everything's great. And I say, MP, you should never do that. You should never do that. You should never pick up the phone and just start talking to the media and blah, 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 chit chatting. No, be strategic. You have to prepare. You have to plan. You have to prepare. You have to practice. Okay, the 4 P's: plan, prepare, practice, perform. How can you do that if you just pick up the phone and start talking? Impossible. Okay, you have to be strategic. We ask reporters what are their line of questioning. Reporters don't have a list of questions. You have a line of questioning, and it's our role to ask that. And we also ask who else is interviewed. You know, I need to know if a reporter approaches me and wants to talk to our president. I need to know if an MP has been interviewed, if a stakeholder, if a partner, if I need to know these things to tell them, our president. When you talk to a radio reporter, deadlines are less important than TV. You need to negotiate the terms if you do open line and panels, and be careful about open lines. These can be tricky. When you talk to a radio reporters, use simple language, okay? Analogies, examples, colorful expression. This is very, very important. TV, you know what? The older generation, like 50 and over, like me, we still sit down at night and watch the news at 10 o'clock, whatever. We still do that. Younger generation, like my daughters, it's more over the iPhone. They don't watch the news. They get their news on Twitter and they're just on their iPhone. That's the reality. When you talk to a TV reporter or a radio reporter, 15 to 20 seconds. Then researchers tell me, David, how can I do that? I mean, my research is thick like this. I said, well, what do you think will happen if you respond in 2 minutes? Well, they will edit, they will cut into your response. And when you do that, you put all the power into the hands of the reporter. Remember, it's not the reporter's interview, it's your interview. You decide what are the best 20 seconds. Reporters, print, they drive the other media. So yes, newsrooms are shrinking, but the largest newsroom are still the print reporter. The largest newsroom in Toronto is the Toronto Star. In Ottawa, it's the Ottawa Citizen, etc., etc. So it's still a good research tool for reporters. And when you talk to a print reporter, you'll see that the interview will be a bit longer. Because when I was teaching journalism, I was telling my students, a radio reporter should be the one announcing the news. A TV reporter will show that news, and a print reporter will explain that news. So when you need to explain, it takes more time. Social media, 84% of Canadians are online, more and more. Yeah, it's the key research tool for reporters, definitely. They want to know who you are. You just Google the name, you'll have all the info you need. So basic, perfect background for perfect medium for background information. Social media is a great way for you to bring attention and traffic to your own personal work, to announce what you have accomplished and introduce yourself as an expert in your own particular field, and to also be aware in real time of developments in your areas of research, and also for networking. Here are a couple of examples, great examples of the way this should be done, and I'm sure you guys are also pretty active on those different platforms. It's just and having a presence there. Here are two of our star researchers that are actually two of our scientific directors, Stephen Hoffman, Population and Public Health, and Christine, which is our scientific director for children's and youth and children's health. So they have a presence. They are there, okay? And you have to keep your profile up to date with your affiliation and link to your website. This is the way you should do this. And I'm pretty sure you guys are all over the place with this. Some common characteristics. So reporters are deadline driven, okay? They are so audience focused. So when you talk to a Globe and Mail reporter, you're not talking to a Toronto Sun reporter, okay? And this is not a judgment, this is a fact-based comment. So Globe and Mail readers are more educated and they make more money. Toronto Sun, their basis is more blue collar people, okay? And this is fact-based. and people stories dominate. Okay, and at the end of the day, I think the important bullet here is they require a quote. Always remember that. Okay, they require a quote. That's what they are after. So when they call, like I said earlier on, we try to determine the angle. At CIHR, if they approach me to talk to a VP or a president, we decide yes or no, we're giving the interview. How we will do this. Sometimes we will decide strategically that we will send written responses. Sometimes it's better for us to do the interview. We decide if it's going to be live or pre-taped. So we have our say about that. We have to negotiate this with the reporter. And we keep everyone in the loop. I was saying that minister's office, they really like to know, especially when our executives at CIHR have to do interviews, and especially not for the past couple of years, but prior to that, when there was, you've probably heard about all the changes that were made to the peer reviewing and the face-to-face peer review, and it was a big thing in the media. So yeah, we had to keep everyone in the loop about that. When I was teaching journalism, I was saying to my students, always be prepared for 7 questions. Always, I go back. Always make sure in your paper you respond to those 7 questions. Who, what, where, when, why, how, and how much. To you trainees, to you people who are following that course, who are going to be spokesperson, I say always be ready for those 7 questions, and particularly the why, the how, and the how much. They will ask you those kinds of questions. So it's all about how you communicate your science. And like I was saying, and I encourage you to approach the comms staff and people that work in different institutions, either CIHR or hospitals or universities, and present them your research results. And when I'm approached, I always ask the researcher, okay, what's your story? And when I ask that, my expectation is that my let's say my wife, who has no science experience at all, will understand what this is all about, because we need to translate this into words that are accessible for the general public, if that is your audience. Because sometimes your audience is more people who are reading Nature or Science. That's another ball game, so you need to adapt. So when I'm approached, first we look at, okay, what's the story here? And then we decide what's the best vehicle to promote this. And I was talking earlier on, remember, about media pitches, about announcements, about maybe podcasts, about math stories. So we kind of look at this, and we will propose something to the researcher. So my word here, my recommendation here is engage communication expert. The sooner the better. And sometimes, well, there's no real appetite from comms, but sometimes there is. So, but you will never know if you don't engage communication. So, and again, talking to reporter, we try to establish a good relationship with them, and respecting their deadline is a good way for us to do this. Always remember that everything you say, even if it's background info, might end up in the paper. Off the record does not exist. This is dangerous. There's tons of examples in the past where spokesperson thought they were off the record and they ended up in the paper. Okay, be careful. You talk to a reporter, make sure that you are aware that material might end up in the paper, in the media. When you do the interview, listen carefully. My dad used to say to me, David, you were born with 1 mouth, 2 ears. So listen twice, then you speak. That's pretty good. So listen carefully during the interview. Refute, correct when necessary, because sometimes things are not accurate. You need to correct. Acknowledge the question. Remember who you're talking to, your audience. Adapt your level of comment to your audience. Prepare Q&A. You should always, and this is important, you should always enter an interview with 3 key messages, 3 positive key messages. And I say positive because don't wait for the media to be positive. They don't wake up in the morning and say, how can I be positive today? No, it's not the way it works. So prepare those 3 key messages and repeat those key messages. And the technique you should be using, and this is when we do our we do half days and full day training session, when we do mock interviews, we simulate TV interviews, radio interviews, we videotape our trainees, and where was I going with this? So you have to prepare those messages and repeat them. And yes, okay. Touch, bridge, deliver. This is the technique that we show them. Touch, bridge, deliver. Touch the question, bridge with a bridging phrase. In French, en français, on dit phrase charnière. So bridging phrase and deliver. Touch the question. So it could be something like, you respond to the reporter, you say something like, this is an interesting question. But for us, the important is, this is the bridge, and then you deliver your message. Or let's say sometimes you don't have I don't have the answer to your question. Touching. What I can tell you is, bridging, deliver your message. And I tell you, it works, okay? It works. Stick to your message. Don't wander. Talk about your level of expertise. Over the phone, doing an interview, turn off your ringer phone, find a quiet spot, use your notes to stay on message. You're over the phone, so use your key messages. They're there in front of you. And you can record your interview with your iPhone if you think that this might be, it might be an interview that's controversial. Just record your interview. In conclusion, always consider your interviews as an opportunity to deliver a message, a positive message, an opportunity to talk about health science, to talk about health research. Don't speculate, talk about things you know, and always think about your audience. Important to understand the subject, the issue, have an objective. Why am I doing this interview? You are not doing an interview to respond to questions. No. You are doing an interview to deliver messages. Remember, it's your interview. Think about your audience and have a look at what's already been known or been written about this, the angle, the likely question, okay? Prepare your messages. And like I was saying, use your bridging phrases to help you go from the question. And at the end of the day, don't repeat this, but questions are not that important. It's your message that's important. You need to become message driven. It's your interview. Always remember that. Oh, that's it. Look at the 4 P's here. So plan your interview, prepare your interview, practice your interview with a colleague, with your partner, and take your iPhone and maybe just videotape yourself or record your voice and perform. Every time you do an interview, you should enter into a performing mode. And some researchers, sometimes they tell me, I'm so nervous to interview. I say, well, it's okay to be nervous, but you need to transform this anxiety into something positive. And as a reporter, when I was reading the news, I was opening the mic, 25 to 30,000 people were listening to my newscast. Let me tell you, I was nervous, but it was a matter of transforming this into positive adrenaline. It's just normal. And that's it. In a nutshell, that was my presentation today. And I'm more than happy. I'm going to stop sharing to have a great discussion, comments, and believe me, there are no bad question or bad comments here. So let's have an open and transparent discussion, and I'll try to help you the best way I can. Riley?
Thank you very much. I think I'll kick it off with a question here as well. So I know some research fields are very prominent on social media areas like Twitter. Is it really important for young trainees to learn how to navigate these kind of social media systems?
You know what? Not only, Riley, it is important, but it's part of their genes, the new generation. Like, I mean, when I have a question, I reach out to my daughters, they're in their 20s, and tack, tack, David, Dad, do this and that. And you need to have a presence in you know, because this is the new way of doing things, and this is where things are happening. I'll just give you an example, Riley. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember, there was an attack on a soldier on Parliament, near Parliament Hill. He was, yeah, you remember this? Okay, it was a big. And it's fascinating how, in the past, our reflex would have been to open the TV, but now the reflex was just on Twitter. It was a play-by-play on Twitter. Like, I mean, really? Remember also another example, a couple more past, when there was a plane that ended up in the Hudson River in New York. Okay? And the flight, and it was a movie about this, actually. The flight had, you know, I think there was some birds in the engine. Anyway, the first persons to show this was not TV reporter. It was a guy filming, and he put this on social media. It's so you need to have a big presence there. And I give you examples, you know, for your profile, for your updating, and to have your, you know, make sure that you're aware of what's being said out there and that you are part of the discussion. Yeah. You want me to go to the chat, or will people raise their hand, or how do we do this?
So there should be a question and answers box. You can see it at the bottom there. It'll be next to the chat.
Okay, here it is. Anonymous attendee. Do you think this is valuable for PhD students to promote their research if departmental reporters would like to interview them and hear more about the work? Do you have any tips for preparing for this work? Okay, let me do you think it's valuable for PhD students to promote their research if departmental reporters would like to interview them and hear more about their work? Of course. Do you have any tips to preparing for this? Well, I think the best tip I can give you is, again, work with communication expert in your institution. They are there to support you, and if they don't support you, call us. If you're if you're linked to CAHR, if you're doing health research, it's our role and mandate to help you. And I was saying that, you know, prepare, and when the best way to prepare, like I said, always make sure you know who your audience is if the reporter calls you, and prepare some key messages, three positive key messages, and make sure that you repeat those messages and that you're positive about that. But the main thing is really engage a communication expert that will help you, because you're not alone out there. That's mainly the main message I normally have. I hope that helps to your question. I have another one with Catherine Chambers. I don't know if you're related to Christine Chambers, Catherine. So do you have any tips on being efficient when preparing for media interviews? I'm an infectious disease epidemiologist and have been approached a few times for media interviews on the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. But I find them incredibly time-consuming to prepare key messages, etc., particularly when asked to review a preprint, no relation to Christine. Okay, thank you, Catherine. Preprint or recently published article and comment. Okay. Catherine, I understand what you're saying, but let me ask you a question, and I know the answer. If I ask you, Catherine, would you do an exam, write an exam without being prepared, or you would take time to prepare? It's the same thing. Okay, I know sometimes it's time consuming, I think, but this is fundamental. And particularly politicians, they tell me, well, you know, David, I've been doing this for many years, I can wing this. No, you're not going to wing this. If you wing this, you might do something bad and say something that might be career end as a quote for you. So please take time to prepare those key messages, and please take time to even practice your interview. And again, remember, interviews are opportunities. Every time a researcher, a scientist gives an interview, it's all the community that's behind you. It's you, and you need to embrace that role. You have a key role, and your role is important. Your impact is also very important. I hope I help explain, Catherine. Okay, no, great. You're very thoughtful. Q&A, I answered those two. Any other comments or question? You guys are probably hungry, and I understand it, but no, sometimes one of the question I'm asked also, if I may, Riley, why people maybe think about their question is sometimes they will say to me, so what happens if I give an interview and I'm wrongly quoted? Reporter does not do a good job and it's wrong. What's being printed in the paper written in the paper is wrong. I said, that's why it's important to engage with a comms expert. It's our role to intervene. It's our role to pick up the phone, not the researcher, our role in comms. Pick up the phone, talk to the reporter, and it happened to me very often. And sometimes the reporter will tell me, well, talk to my editor. Perfect. Talk to the editor and try to, to correct this and try to get a correction in the paper. So really, that's why important to work with comms. Oh, Andrew, I'm curious if there's any horror stories or things to watch out for. How bad have you seen being unprepared go? I like this, Andrew. That's yeah, well, I've seen horror stories on both sides of the mic because, as you know, I was a reporter for 15 years and I was also a reporter, a spokesperson for many, many years. I was interviewing a city councilman, Ottawa city councilman, as a young reporter, back in the early 90s. And the subject was prostitution in the byword market, which was a huge problem at that time. And I remember he basically told me that he decided to take on his own to go, on site, evaluate the situation, and he kind of wanted to show that he was like a how do you say that? Say John Doe? What do you say that? He was a client for a prostitution. Anyway, and he told me everything he told the prostitute and everything the prostitute offered to do. And he thought I was not taping, but I was taping. And these were like words that could not be repeated or that could not go on air, not at all. And after that, I took a minute and I said, the name of the person was Richard. I said, Richard, be careful. You shouldn't, you shouldn't do that, So be careful every time you talk to a reporter. I knew him, had a good relationship with him. I could have done damage to him, really, but I did not. So that's really something you should be aware of, and how bad is being unprepared go. Like I was saying many times, it's politicians particularly that don't take time or to prepare and to think about strategically what kind of question can be asked and what are strategically my responses. Yeah, I don't have any particular examples, but there are a lot out there, and I'm sure you've seen many, and there's a lot in there, and we normally, in the deck that I use when I do the full day, we have a couple of examples which are not really good examples, what you should not, but sometimes reporters will take you off your comfort zone, and then this is a trap, and then you start responding to the question instead of being on your comfort level zone, which is where you have to respond with key messages. So I'll make sure to make friends. You know what? Actually, it's and you have different style of reporters, like you have different styles of researchers. and I would not say make friends, but establish a professional relationship, I think is really important. And even us as media persons, of course, I'm closer to some reporters, and I'm not close to some reporters. And I had some vigorous, I will use that word, discussions with some reporters that I felt were not doing their job properly. And I've had some great discussion. Avis Favreau, which was the CTV star reporter for many years, covering science. It was a great relationship with Avis. I used to pick up the phone and call Avis and pitch stories over the phone. And she used to say, David, you know what? You're one of the few PR person that picks up the phone and calls me. They all send me messages. They all send me email. I like to talk sometimes. Said, you know, it's a, and we establish a relationship like this. So not a friend, but good professional relationship. And because if you're a friend, it's hard sometimes if you're too close, when you have to really, to be to set the record straight, or so it's important to really establish a good relationship, but not any friend relationship. I'm interested to know if you have any tips specific to podcast interview. Podcast, I really like podcasts. Podcasts are can be powerful. They have to be done the proper way. The first advice I would give you is engage expert, again, a communication expert. Sometimes I see stuff where researcher or people take into their end that they can do this. Everybody has a camera. Everybody can, but be careful. With a podcast, the length of the podcast is important. Sometimes I see or I hear people, they do a podcast of 30 minutes. I say, what? No. Shorter the better. The language you use is very important. The voice is important. Using the proper, and again, depending on your audience. Okay, if you're talking to the man or the woman of the street, it's one thing. If you're talking to your peer, it's another thing. The level of your language level will be different. So to adapt this to your different audience, very important. Where you promote this, very important. Okay, it's okay to do a podcast. What do you do with it? Well, you need to make sure you have a good promotion plan. That's why, again, comms can help you choose the best vehicle to promote that particular podcast. And videos also. Video work well, but sometimes it's better. Sometimes you will do a video, and out of the video, you will just pick up the sound and create a podcast with it. So a video becomes a video and a podcast. So that works well too. But again, I think the best advice is really work with comms and don't hesitate. Okay, comms are there to help you. Like I said, again, without the research community, I have no work. I need you guys. So, and when I say it's the same with comms people in all institutions. We need each other to promote, because I'm not a science expert. For the past 15 years, of course, I'm a bit better in science, but I know my background is not science. My background is journalism and communication. But with you guys, we can, like I said, we can do some magic together, and we can help everybody talk about science. Riley?
So I don't see any more questions, but I might finish on one question that I have as well. So university departments, conferences, they put a lot of emphasis on practicing poster presentations, oral presentations, but I don't think I've ever seen a department practice media interviews. Do you think that's something that universities should be implementing?
110% yes. Definitely. And sometimes, Riley, I'll be honest with you, some researchers, they tell me that they reached out to their comms institution and they never heard back. That's unacceptable. Okay, you should get support. You should get support from your institution. You have a great story to tell. And my message is always, you're not alone out there. All the CIHR, researchers we fund, my message is, if your institution doesn't respond, call us. We'll respond. We fund part of your work, and we're interested in hearing about your work. And it's fun because we're not in competition with university comms, but at the same time, when, how can I put this to be politically correct here? I understand that a reporter, it's always more sexy to talk about a researcher from Toronto University or Dalhousie or McMaster, blah, 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 or McGill, than talking about a researcher funded by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. Like, what a bad marketing name. Just, I shouldn't say that, but I say it. But yeah, I understand that. But at the end of the day, the important thing is that they talk to you and that you get the proper help. Should it come from university or from CIHR? I'm not gonna, fight on this. The important thing is that the science is being talked about in the media. So I think there's a comment for Sarita. Thanks for engaging and informative talk, David. In this age of social media platforms being the dominant channels through which information is spread, how do you suggest researchers deal with armchair experts who comment on our work? What can we do to be proactive in combating misinformation and disinformation in this context? Wow, Sarita, that's a great question. And this phenomenon is also called what we call citizen reporters. And there's a lot of people that have a lot to say out there in the social media. And the good news about that is the general public still attribute more respect and belief into mainstream media than what they see and hear on social media. My suggestion, Sarita, is have a presence. Like at CIHR, Christine, our social media expert, she monitors everything, and it happens a lot. There's some stuff out there that's not true. We decide, sometimes we jump into the conversation, we correct and refute. Sometimes we decide strategically that we're going to stay sidelined because we don't have any advantage, we don't have any positive thing about jumping into the conversation. But I think the best thing to make sure is, when you feel that strategically you should jump into the conversation, don't hesitate, refute. Again, it's being out there, being part of the discussion and ensuring a presence. And this is, and you will establish also your credibility out there. But I so much agree with you. There's a lot of stuff out there, and sometimes you're like, oh my God, you're biting your nails and saying, and particularly, guys, with the pandemic, and you guys work with epidemiology, and we worked a lot with Cheru, Cheru Kaushik. You guys know Cheru? She was our star for the past 2 years and a half. And the things the interviews Cheru had to do to correct because all of the false information that was out there was like never-ending story. My God. But we had to do it. We had to choose when and how, but we had to do it. Well, 22, almost over. I think pretty much time for lunch. Any last question or comments, Riley? Or
not for me. Sarita, do you have any?
No, thank you so much for a wonderful talk, David, and for answering that question for me. I don't engage on social media at all, and Riley's question made me think about the fact one of the things that scares me is having to deal with kind of these troll type people who you expose yourself when you're open on those channels.
And you know what, Sarita, you need to give it some thought and to be strategic before engaging, because sometimes people are just looking for a fight.
Yeah.
and they're just looking for a partner and for the dance. And maybe you're not that partner. You're not going to be that partner. So it really is a strategic basis. But again, comms people can help you. They can help you. I guess it's really my main message. And if they don't respond, call me.
Thank you.
Just a reminder for everyone that after this session, there will be 2 poll questions that come up. They are completely anonymous. One will be for Keith and one will be for David as well. But I just wanted to thank you once again, David. This is a fantastic segment. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys at this conference. Thank you, Andrew, for inviting me, and Aaron for all your support also, and to everyone who helped organize this. Always a pleasure to be there and talk about media relation and science. And remember, you're not alone out there. Let's work together.
And with that, I think it's a good time for lunch. Everybody can get up, everyone can stretch, and then we'll reconvene in about 20 minutes. Thank you, David.